Hello and welcome to another episode of IT Pro TV. I'm your host Mike Broderick, and with me today is Mr. Sean Oriano. How you doing, Sean?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great because we are getting ready to kick off our Kali Linux series. I mean, I'm standing here next to Sean Oriano. That's good enough, right? But we've got a great topic for you. We're going to be going over, now I say Kali Linux. I know you've been saying Kali Linux. Is there a reason for that, or just,
No.
let's just...
I just like to be different, I guess.
Okay. I apologize, and I don't know what the proper pronunciation for that is. We'll go with Kali Linux. But Kali Linux, Sean, is a distro of Linux that we can get free, obviously, and we can download that, install it. It's got some pretty cool origins, and it's a pretty cool distro when it comes to, because there are a myriad of choices out there. Mm-hmm. But tell us a little bit about Kali Linux.
You know, it's funny when I want to say Kaylee, I want to say Callie, and then I want to think Kali from Indiana Jones, the second movie. The head of the cult was Kali. So
I keep singing in my head. I'm like going back to Cali. I don't know why. So.
Oh yeah.
But it is a really good distro. I'm a Windows guy. I've done a lot with Windows. Kind of dabbled in Linux, and I remember playing with one called Backtracks because it was one that had a lot of the tools already combined into it, and it was good for doing certain testing and things like that. And that's really where Kali gets its history of where it's from, right?
Yeah, that's its roots. We had Backtrack for so many years. It went through several iterations. You saw that brought up in several different places as one of the tools, or the tool to use on the Linux side that brought everything together for you. And it actually did a good job. I mean, we saw a lot of people using that tool over the years, a lot of discussion on it, and it's you can tell how popular it was by the amount of people that still refer to it. You still hear people like, oh well, you've got Kaylee, and then you've got Backtrack. It's like there's a little more to the story there. Like, oh well, I haven't seen Kaylee, but I've used Backtrack. Well, you kind of have. Well, what happened is Backtrack was around for a number of years, and like I said, did a great job. It shares a lot in common, or Kayla shares a lot in common with it, but there definitely are some differences. Basically, what happened is that as the whole thing went on, and they kept upgrading and doing stuff to Backtrack, really what it amounted to is they took a version of Linux and then started putting tools on top of it. That's what it really was. And so they just initially started putting that stuff on top of it, and then just putting more stuff on top of it, and people liked it. It was great. It was like one-stop shopping. You had everything there right in that one bundle. However, at one point they decided, when they were going from the last version of Backtrack, which was I think was 5, R3, as I think Ben's put up here. 5 R3 was the last version of that, and they were deciding what they wanted to do after that version. And what they said was, let's redo the whole thing. As they started evaluating how the upgrade was going to work, they really started looking at it and said, we can do a lot better than this if we really decide just to strip the whole thing down and do it from the ground up. So what they did is they got a distro of Linux. I want to say I just had a little a brain thing in there, but yeah, Debian is what I was looking for. So they took a Debian, and what they did is they talked to the companies that made a lot of the tools that were included in Backtrack, and they said, well, we're redoing things from the ground up. So when we do this, we'd like to talk to you about having much tighter integration with the product than you had than just installing it on top before. And so that made so a lot of these tools worked a lot better and had substantially more power than they had in previous versions. And you also had them just natively there instead of just kind of installed on top of it. And so that gives you just a lot more power, a lot more efficiency, and the ability to do just a lot more things. Overall, if you look at the two, they still are, they're still close enough and enough similarities that if you were with Backtrack and you're moving over to Kali, you're not going to have really that much problem. I mean, you may just come over and say, okay, well, there's a few new utilities in there, but for the most part, it looks the same. If you haven't, then heck, no big deal. It's not going to even matter to you. I would tell you at this point, yeah, you're not going to be going with Backtrack anymore. You could still use it, but if you want to be using the new stuff, you really should be on Kaylee and not be messing with Backtrack. It's going to start. It's already has started showing its age and its end of life, and that's just going to get more and more dramatic as things go forward. So Kaylee's where you want to be. You see it referenced in all sorts of different places now. They don't mention Backtrack nearly as much as they used to. I was even last week, before I came here, I was attending a seminar, and Backtrack was never ever even mentioned. And we had quite a few people that were pen testers, and there had probably about 40 when all was said is done in the same room, and none of them mentioned Backtrack during that. It was all done on Kaylee. So it shows you just kind of right there. You have people at that point doing it.
For like I said, for a Windows guy like me, I mean, Kaylee is a fantastic distro because it has everything, as you said, pre-compiled in there, really designed in there. It's not like they just went, downloaded it, added it to their ISO, and put it out there. I mean, from the ground up, this was built with penetration testing in mind. It's got just dozens and dozens and dozens of tools already compiled in there, ready to go. We've got so many different ways we can run Kaylee Linux. So you guys are in for a real treat. It's a very good distro to get used to. If you're going to do any type of penetration testing, as Sean said, this is the distro to use. If you just want a Linux distro to keep handy, like me as a Windows guy, I still like to have a nice live thumb drive now and again because Linux has some tools that I can't port over to Windows. This is the one to have because half of them are pre-compiled right on there. Yep. It's a very well thought out distro of Linux, so I really like it.
Yeah, there's so much, and there's so much support for it. Like I said, the tools are already there, and then there's even the repositories that you have available on every version of Linux. There's even more tools up there that you can add to that. If you have something else that you developed yourself, you can add it into there. There's third-party developers that have their own stuff that can be added into there. So it saves you the trouble of finding a lot of that stuff right from the get-go. But I wouldn't just limit yourself to what's in the interface. We're going to concentrate a lot of the stuff that's in the interface, over the course of our segments here. But don't limit yourself to just that. Don't be afraid to go out and look at these other things because there are plenty of other things you can put on top of this. Something to mention, by the way, when you're doing this version of Linux, you could, if you wanted to, install it right in your hard drive and put your other applications on it and use it like a desktop OS if you wanted. I've seen people do that. It's not really meant for that, but heck, if that's the way you roll, who am I to go through and say anything? But it wasn't intended to be that sort of thing. It's like if you're using Linux and you want to have a desktop version of Linux, Ubuntu would be good for that. Those ones would be totally acceptable. But yeah, you could do it with this, but that's not what they really intended it for. They already have quite a few things in there going on that it's just better to use something else for it. But you never know. There's always somebody that wants to do it. I tried it just to see at one point myself to see if
So if you use it as a daily driver
it's like could I have both? And there, can I do both things with it? It's like you can, but it wasn't meant for that. So it's just better just to leave that to something else. And just FYI, something else I'd add on to this is as far as kind of a prereqs thing, sort of, when we're talking about this, is, and this is a prereqs as far as skills and expectations go, is that when you talk about what is Kaylee Linux and the fact that it has all these tools built into it, and it's made to be easy to use easy, relatively speaking, it's easy. It's not like Windows easy. Don't expect to see a lot of GUI tools and all that in there. Right. Not only do you have to know, if you looked at the CEH course, for example, not only do you have to know what those concepts are, but now you also have to know, how to make those things happen using Linux. And Linux is not going to say in every case, well, here's a box you can fill in and hit OK. It's not going to do that. You have to get familiar with the command line.
Yeah, you know, I've seen people with playing around with Kali Linux, and they get this huge menu with all these different tools and stuff on there. They click on a tool, a shell pops open, they just stare at it. They go, okay, and they close that. When they try another tool, a little shell pops open, they stare at it for a little while, go, okay, that's not what I thought it was. And yeah, there's no wizards, there's no GUI. I mean, there's a couple in there, but a lot of it is going to be shell driven or command line driven. Yeah.
Yeah, we want to set an expectation right up front that is that why when you're doing pen testing with Windows, you have just a tremendous amount of GUI-based tools, but you also have some command line. But there's not nearly as many command line tools in Windows. They are there. There's no denying that they're there. But heck, you could in a lot of cases go through a whole pen testing suite and never have to touch the command line of Windows. If you really know what you're doing, you don't have to get in there. Now, granted, a lot of pen testers and people that do that sort of thing still have this thing where they'd like to get in and work with the console now and then, because there's still something satisfying about typing something in and something pops back. And remember, if you're going to do the console, it always needs to be black with green text on it, because that's traditional hacker stuff.
That's right. If you do any other colors, you're not a true hacker or pen tester.
Yeah, it's more powerful with a black background with green text. If you use the white on black, not nearly as powerful. That's advanced mode.
That's right.
But yeah, it's just to make sure we're clear on that. You're going to have to get familiar with command line. You got to get comfortable with it. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. You're going to. I mean, heck, I can guarantee you'll see me mistype a few things in here. I've done it. Hey, I still do it from time to time. I'm like, hold on. It happens. But don't just sit there and stare at the thing. Figure out what's going on with it. There you go.
All right, well, Sean, I'll tell you what, I'm sitting here on the home page. I've browsed over to Kali Linux, looking at the home page, and I probably think that the first thing I want to do is I want to go and click one of these downloads, but there's several different options I've got. So let's talk about the different ways we can install. We might go in later and actually show some, but there are different ways I can run Kali, right? I don't have to, well, I can install it. I've got other options. What are my options there?
Yeah, there's a lot of options here, a whole lot of options, as a matter of fact. The first thing I'm going to look at is what you're seeing, up top on there is when you look at those downloads. What they have is those should be the ISOs or right up top, and they also have them. You can see them available in the torrent version. Those are the ones. If you get those ones, you can any of those ones up top. Those ones, once you download, you can install them directly onto your hard drive or burn into a CD or DVD, as the case may be, or you can put it on a flash drive. You've got that option. That's precisely what those are for. What you want to pay attention to when you look at these is that is the fact that we do have a 64 and 32-bit version. You're gonna need to pay attention to that based on what architecture you've got. If you have one or the other, you want to get the one that's appropriate for it. Other than one being 32, one being 64, as far as what we're talking about now, there's really no appreciable difference. And I know probably there's people in the chat room right now, and people that watch us later and scream, going, "Hold on, there's differences." Didn't say there wasn't. I said there's no appreciable difference you need to worry about right now. Right. So what you want to do is you want to make sure you get the appropriate one. You'll also notice when you look at that list, down at the bottom of those two, you can see some ARM versions on there. Those are for another type of processor. Unless you have that processor, you're probably never going to worry about that at all.
One of the big things about, I'll flip back out to the home page if it'll let me here. I'm using Internet Explorer, so it's a little on the slow side. But Kali is very flexible, right? I can run it on 32-bit Intel architecture. I can run it on 64-bit. They've got that mini version. Like if I want to put it on a smaller thumb drive, they've got that mini version there. And I think that's their little page right there. We can see that it'll run on, there we go, Raspberry Pi, Odroid, QBox, BeagleBones, Chromebooks, anything with ARM architecture as well. So really, really flexible. I mean, I can see building your own little custom Ras Pi or something like that, put it on there. Could be kind of cool. So
Yeah,
that's really what you got to do is you got to pay attention to which flavor you need. And then they got some other options below that. If I get back over to that page, again, sorry, it's going a little slow. If I keep going down a little bit, as soon as it'll let me. There we go.
Yeah, they've got the virtual images there too. If you wanna go that way, and grab them that way. I guess it says that they've moved them over to offensive security. You know, they're the ones that really gave birth to this whole thing. So they're handling that now. So you can just go over and grab it. Everything for this is free, for Kali Linux. So don't worry. It's like, oh, they're gonna charge me for this if I go over there. No, they're not gonna charge you for it. Just that they're the ones that maintain that. As far as I'm concerned, I really don't worry about. I almost never download a virtual image for Kali. It's just so easy to build one. Only time I would do it is if it was for like a training session where there was a specific environment built and customized, then I would do it. Other than that, probably not.
Yeah. If you guys want to get a first look at it, if you've never played with a Linux distro, don't feel like diving into doing the installs or something like that, it is kind of handy. VirtualBox is free. That's a free virtualization software. VMware has their VM player, I think, is free as well. Download, I tell you, I downloaded one the other day just to see if it worked, and like a charm. Downloaded the hard drive, it's already installed. You create a new virtual machine through VirtualBox and you just point it to that existing hard drive and you're up and running. Sean said extremely easy to install, and we're going to show you guys how to go through that install process. But if you want to get started right now, hey, go ahead and just download that VirtualBox image and use that. That's definitely a good way to get started. So they give us lots of flexibility depending on what we want to do. If we want to run it off a thumb drive and live, if we want to run it off a live CD, heck, if we want to install it. We use those same ISOs if we want to install it locally on a machine or do a dual boot or create your own virtual machine. So all there for the download, free. Love it. Can't beat that.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning at this point, by the way, too, is that there's as you mentioned, there's a live version, so you can pop it in a USB device and have it run right off that USB device, no problem, or off of optical media if that's the way you want to do it. You can definitely put it on the hard drive, no problem. So you can have a dedicated pen testing box. You can virtualize it if you want. But there's also another mode that's worth throwing in here, and that is the forensics one. There actually is specifically a forensics mode in there, and that's a significant option to have, especially for those that went through our award-winning forensics class.
Digital Forensics Investigator. Make sure you go check out those DFI episodes. Absolutely.
That you can use. You could actually use Kali over on that side of the house too. So it's not just something where you can do this penetration testing role with. You can also take it over and do forensics with as well. So and if you think about it, that's kind of neat because you've got a suite of tools you can use on pen testing and get familiar with it there. And then if you're going to be transitioning over to a forensics role at some point, or at least taking some of that on, well, you've got a tool that you can carry over that you already know. It makes it so you can concentrate in other areas. It may not be the only tool you end up using, but you've got a tool there that you're familiar with all the other stuff inside of it. And the benefit of the forensics version over the live version is the forensics version, keeps you from touching the hard drive and stuff like that. And if you were in the digital forensics class, you remember that's a huge thing, is that you can't tamper with the stuff that you're analyzing. You can't tamper or alter evidence. So that's a huge deal. And it does that a very good job with it. It loads everything into memory just like it does with a live version, but it puts those extra safeties in place to make sure that those things can't get altered. And people have done tests where they've plugged a hard drive in and hashed it and checked it out and got a fingerprint of it. And then after they did that, they did some stuff with Kali and then checked the hard drive again, and it hadn't changed. Right. So it didn't alter it at all, which is what you want.
Absolutely, that's so impressive. And then I know we're going to talk about it later. I hate to give it all away, but I know there's one way we can install it, run it live off of a thumb drive. but then have an extra encrypted partition that we can use to maybe, like if we're capturing log files or intercepting data or whatever, here we are doing this forensic investigation and I can't touch the hard drive. I'm running my tools off a live little thumb drive. How do I collect information? How do I get it off that machine, right? Hey, you can make an encrypted partition right on that thumb drive, and even though the Linux part, the Kali part is running live and you're not going to have any persistence there, that one volume is persistent, so you can keep log files and things like that. So it's a fantastic tool. It really is. I'm looking forward to this whole series. And Sean, I went ahead and pulled up a web page here just to give you guys an idea of what Sean was talking about. He said, there's a lot of tools in here. So I'm going to click on tools. There's probably at least 10, 15, right? Let's see what we got. Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, look at that. I mean, look at all the different tools that are already in Kali. That's pretty dang impressive. I'm still going, still scrolling down the list there. So quite a few tools. They even give you meta packages to where maybe you don't want all those. Maybe you want to make your own lighter version of it. You can download just the meta packages and create your own ISOs. It's impressive stuff.
Yeah, it's and that's the cool thing is that you've got so many options here. These tools, a lot of the tools you'll see on here are there's you have them all available to you. You may never use them all. I would tell you if you have the time and you really want to do your homework, try them all to get familiar with what they all do. I mean, we won't get time to cover them all in here because it just we're not gonna go to that just nauseating level of detail. But we're going to show you the major areas and show you some of the ones in each category. And then once you've seen that, you can say, well, maybe I want to take a look at what this one does, or this one does, or this one does. So there's all sorts of specialized tools in there. And by no means is the ones that they have on that list are you limited to. There's some ones way out beyond that too. I mean, you can pull from really any place. If you so choose, you can write your own stuff to go on top of that. That's the power of Linux, that you can do all that. And you'll notice that flexibility is going to be something that you really appreciate. Initially, getting into something like this, a new operating system coming from Windows is probably going to be kind of irritating and frustrating for you. Everyone's been through it, but you'll learn it. You'll start cutting your teeth and going, okay, now I can kind of see the flow of things. You get used to things, and it'll be second nature. Nice. So don't worry about that part. But I can actually just give you a quick peek. We'll show you how the installation looks, just in case you've never seen it all installed in a virtual environment. Nice. But to kind of give you a peek at what Kali looks like for those of you that haven't seen it, what I have up on my screen, this is Kali running in VMware's Player. So this is a plain, right out of the box installation. Nothing special has been done to it. What we have is down at the bottom we have a status bar sitting down here. We have our menu sitting up here. You can very clearly see that. Here's our menus. In fact, we're going to spend a lot of time here under our menus. You can see that we have a whole bunch of tools listed there. But we can even, here's our Kali Linux one, all the stuff that Mike was just showing on their web page. All those tools, or most of those tools, are going to be located right here. You can see they're specifically broken into into categories. I mean, here's our information gathering, and poof, it comes out, and here's a whole list of tools specifically designed for information gathering. So if you click on one of those, it might very well just come out even further. I mean, that one really. I mean, look at how many menus we went down on there. It's really going down to a high level of detail, or big in-depth level of detail, I guess to say. I mean, some of these things, by the way, if you look at this, and we'll look at this when we get further in. But this live host identification, when you look at this also shows you the diversity of tools. You can see, if you look really close at this, you can see that there's even some of these tools have a 6 after them. Mm-hmm. They've got tools that are specifically designed for IP6. So there's tools here that are readily designed to work with that now. Nice. So you're really ready for a lot of things. So. Yeah, if you don't know IP6 yet, you've got even more reason to learn.
Right. So yeah, it's just it looks like a great distro. I'm really excited about diving into this week and plugging our way through it. I think our viewers are. Hopefully, you guys are as excited as well because it's going to be a good time. Lots of fun stuff. So, well, what do you think, Sean? Have we pretty much done anything else you want to throw into our just learning about Kali and getting ready for all the fun we're going to have?
Well, I would recommend if you're gonna start doing this and follow along with us, you just go ahead and get Kali downloaded. Choose your virtualization software of choice if you want to virtualize. For what we're going to be doing here, over all these segments, it doesn't really matter if you virtualize it. That later on you might have a reason to physically install it on something, and that's your call on that. But for right now, choose your virtualization software. Don't care what it is, doesn't matter to me. And then just download the appropriate version of Kali and get going. It only takes a few moments to install, literally. I mean, it's very quick to install. So once you got that done, you can go ahead and see some of the stuff we're doing. You can experiment yourself. It's going to be some trial and error. Just be prepared for that. We're also going to show you, once you have that set up, also going to show you in here how, because I get asked this all the time. Well, you show us all this neat stuff. Well, how can I practice it? Well, there's a site called Bank of America. There's this what you can.
Wait, you got my account number?
Yeah. So and the prize is. But what you can do is I have some virtual machines that you can also load that you can they're intentionally vulnerable. So you can use them to run different tests against and see how these tools work and actually get real responses from it. We have ones that can do everything from just that are work with just basic scans to doing SQL injections to doing testing web applications. I mean, there's so many of them available. And so that's something else we're going to get into too. But you're going to want to start, letting the rubber hit the road by getting your virtualization software and getting Kali. Like I said, you can use whichever one you want. You want to use VMware. If you got access to the full version of VMware, go for it. You just want to use a VMware player, go ahead and use that. VirtualBox, fine. Virtual PC, get out of my class. Other than that, but yeah, you can. You can. But there's a use whatever it is that you want.
Very good, very good. All right, well, everybody's got their homework then. If you want to follow along with these episodes coming your way, get yourself a version of Kali, download your particular flavor, install it your way. If you want to put it on a live USB or a CD, or you want to install it in a VM, or download one of those pre-created virtual hard drives and fire that up. Do what you got to do. Get yourself Kali Linux so you can play along with us. We're going to not only show you how to work with Kali, but even do some actual scans and stuff and show you how to set up your own little sandbox so that you can play along as well. So hope you guys are as psyched as we are. But for now, we're going to sign off here at IT Pro TV. I'm Mike Roderick.
And I'm Sean Ariano.
And we'll see you soon.